Hey there, everyone. Happy 4th of July. I'm Fanshen, and I am half Jamaican and half white American.
And I'm Heidi Durrow, and I am half black and half Danish. And we are...
the Mixed
Chicks. Mixed Chicks Chat, the only live weekly show about being racially and culturally mixed. Woo-hoo!
That's right. Yes, baby. And we got to warn you guys that the way most of our little projects, well, I shouldn't say little, our projects get started is when the two of us go on these hikes. Yes. And it happens probably every 6 months or so, I'd say. And we go, Let's go on a hike. We haven't seen each other. We miss each other, and we need to exercise, so let's go on a hike. So we went on a hike. So I'm just going to put that out there. I'm not even going to give you little morsels of the things that are going on in our brains, but just to tell you that we've been on another hike, to warn you.
We've did a hike, and we have some morsels that may be coming about in the future. So we'll see. We'll keep you posted on that. The other news, and stop me, Fanshen, if this is not appropriate, because I feel like I'm bragging every week, but I really just want to share because I'm so excited. You know, this book I wrote, it's called The Girl Who Fell from the Sky.
Yes!
It's coming out in February. Well, you know, but let me tell all of you guys who haven't heard. I sent out an email to a few people and put it up on my blog, but my book was named one of the top 10 debuts of the season. Yes! By Publishers Weekly. So it's kind of big. And yes, you can pre-order it now at your local bookstore. You can pre-order it, or you can go online to any of the major retailers, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Borders, and also to indiebound.org, and you can pre-order it at this time. I think most places are discounting it if you pre-order it. Anyway, I was so excited, Fanshen. I'm so happy.
It's very, very cool. You guys have to read the article, which Heidi, I'm going to insist that you put it up on the blog because it's really, really cool. Like, we know somebody famous, guys.
I'm not famous. I'm not famous, but I'm really happy. It's so exciting.
You're totally famous, dude. No, really. It's very, very cool.
And so you can pre-order it. If you pre-order it, even if you go to your local library and say, could you get this book on your list, that would be awesome. It won't be available until February, possibly January. The release date is February 16th, but oftentimes that means it's available as early as January. So anyway, it's just a few more months away, and I can share this story with you. I'm so proud of it.
We're so excited, and the story is incredible. So be ready. I cannot wait till everybody gets to read it, and then we can talk about it more. And if you are listening to this podcast and haven't listened to some of the archive episodes, Heidi does read from her book. I don't remember the title of the episode. What's that? I want to say it was on the N-word because...
Yeah, it was actually.
It was, okay, so it's on the N-word episode, and you have to hear it. You will, and also the excerpt, I mean, they give a little tiny excerpt in the article, but just you will see the genius that is the Ms. Heidi Durrow. She's just like an incredible writer. She's my hero. She's my hero writer. Someday I maybe will write like her. She's just incredible. So anyway, yay, maybe I'm saying too much now. I even feel like I'm bragging too much. I tell everybody about it. Yay.
Well, yay. So we'll go on to other people who have really great things going on.
That's right. So we'll go on to our guest for today, who we met. We met because he came on for the Tiffany Jones show, and if you don't know, we absolutely adore Ms. Tiffany Jones, who is the Mulatto Diaries blogger. You can find her on YouTube. She's also got a great blog that she is really consistent with. And so when we had her on, we got all these new listeners because everybody came on to listen to her. including the amazing Mike Peden, who is with us today. If you hear me call him TSB or the Sports Brain, I just have to explain why, because that's his username. And so that's the name we see on our hosting console. So I may fall into that trap, but he's just a wonderful guy, and now our friend and a filmmaker and an advocate for some causes that we'll let him talk about some more. So let's bring him on. Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Welcome to Mixed Chicks Chat Live.
Thanks. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, Mike, you listen to the show, so maybe you've rehearsed your answer, but
you probably are ready. Yes.
Traditional first question: what are you?
What am I? I'm about as white as you can get. If the ozone hole gets too big, I'm a goner. Or if we run out of sunscreen, I'm hoping one of those two things don't happen, because otherwise I'm in big trouble.
That's an excellent answer. Woo-hoo! Yay!
A+.
Thanks.
So I've got to know, Mike, and then we'll go into more. But my first question to you is, how did you? I know how you found us. You found us through Tiffany. What was it about Tiffany's vlog and about this topic that interested you?
Well, before I get into that, I'd like to backtrack just a little bit to kind of explain how this whole thing began. I was in an electronic news reporting and writing class at the University of Minnesota. In other words, it was reporting stories as you would if you were with a TV station. And so I read an article on the New York Times, which I believe featured one of the guests that you had on a few weeks ago, Philip Handy. They talked to him among other guests, and it was really an introspective article on the subject, and I was trying to think up of feature or ideas for a final package, which is like a longer story for television. And I thought it would be an interesting topic because I had a few connections up here in the Twin Cities, and as a reporter, you want to make yourself stand by looking for stories that aren't being necessarily told. So I decided to pursue that, and then I posted that story to YouTube. I got an A on the assignment, and then it was sort of by accident.
Great.
Tiffany Jones happened to find it, and she listed a comment, and so I asked, well, how did you find this thing? And then she mentioned, I found this through a search. I don't have the comment on me, so I'm just paraphrasing. And then we just started going back and forth a little bit more on YouTube. I started following her diaries, and then she made the announcement that she was going to be on the Mixed Chicks Chat, and I hadn't listened to her talk live in any sense. I had just seen her blog, so I followed her there, and then holidays came and went, and then I returned, and so that's how I kind of stumbled my way on here. And after the story was over, I ended up talking to six people who identified as multiracial, and I thought since there was no way to get them all in 90 seconds, and because I work for a cable television station in St. Paul, I figured I could make an hour-long version or a longer version to get everybody's story told, and so that's how the full-length documentary came to be.
Wow.
Well, I think that's so fascinating.
Right, and then you probably found out about the festival kind of into those moments when you started to listen to the show, and it was just so perfect that you had this this piece, and we were looking for pieces for the festival, and we got great feedback on your documentary at the festival.
Oh, thanks. It was actually your festival that helped me sort of speed up production, because I wasn't sure when I was going to get this done, and then I heard about the festival coming up, so I thought, I wanted to get going on it, and so I finished it in February, which was about a month, I think, before the deadline, and so that's how I expanded my audience to Los Angeles.
We like it. Right. Well, I want to step back for a minute, because I'm so interested in finding out what was the core part of that story that you read in the New York Times that really spoke to you to be of interest.
The first part, from what I recall, is the statistic that the multiracial population was growing, and so it's something that I don't think people are going to be able to ignore for much longer, kind of like with some of the other exploits I've pursued. And then the other thing that stuck out was just the environment that they brought up, that it wasn't as friendly for the multiracial population just a decade or even a little more than a decade ago. I get the monoracial people, for lack of a better word, they weren't they weren't so accepting of these mixed race people because it felt like they were betraying their communities, whether it was white or black or whatever race you want to go into. And so I thought, well, and me being a very logically oriented person, I just thought this doesn't make any sense because it's a trait that doesn't define anything about a person's character. So I thought, well, let's see what the approach, the environment, what is the opinion of multiracial identity here in Minnesota.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, so tell us, how was it that you actually had access to so many people who were of mixed heritage?
Yeah, the Twin Cities has a pretty large multiracial population, and particularly in Minneapolis, St. Paul. If you go outside, then it becomes much more segregated. Minnesota in general is the 90% Caucasian. That's just I know it. That's just how it is. But I went around. I knew some people, or I knew some friends who were mixed race, or that I had a hunch they were mixed race after getting exposed to the topic. I'm getting better at spotting them, but it's not like I go out there and ask them, "Hi, what's your ethnic background?" You know what I mean? But
yes, we understand.
And a friend of mine was doing a similar project. Was doing a documentary of his own on the same topic, and he originally wanted to do a focus group. So I talked to him, and he gave me some of his sources, and then that's how I got a hold of, I think, Ashley Ellis Mylan, who was the women's basketball player, and I just thought that would be an interesting viewpoint. Well, what does an athlete think about it? Because, it's pretty common in professional basketball, but that doesn't mean that they're oblivious to what's going on socially.
Right.
Good point. Yeah, she's a great find. I just love her words in the documentary.
Yeah, and the other thing I was really struck by was how honest and open and just really vulnerable people let themselves be with you. What was the secret behind that?
Well, it helps to have a journalism background. I studied at the University of Minnesota in journalism, and I told everybody, and I've done this with all my documentaries, is that I'm not looking to tell anything specific. Yeah, I look at this as I'm trying to get a story, and the best way to get a story is to, in some ways, take yourself out of it and kind of just be the fly in the wall and let your subjects guide the storytelling for you. And so it's a pretty common tactic when you interview somebody, is to listen to your subjects. And because if you listen to your subjects, then they will carry the story for you, and then you don't have to try to fish for it. They'll say something that stands out, and so you'll have this list of questions, and before you know it, you're off on this tangent that you never expected, simply because you were listening to your subjects. So that's what I recommend for anybody who is doing a documentary or interviewing someone on especially a sensitive topic, is to listen to your subjects.
Okay, but let me play devil's advocate here, Mike. What did these people think when this white guy shows up and wants them to really talk about these very complicated issues about race and mixed race identity? What did you get any? I don't know. And was there any tug of war? Were there any misgivings?
No. Although when I was first doing this, I kind of thought the same thing to myself, that it's sort of this disconnect that, a person who isn't mixed at all, who didn't grow up in that kind of environment or something like that, would be interested in the topic. But I really didn't have any misgivings with people, although there are people who have questioned me about it. Actually, I met with someone yesterday for a follow-up. She does a lot of work on transracial adoption, but it's just one, and I could see where she was coming from because I've dealt with this myself. It hasn't happened too much, but some people are concerned that I might be doing this to exploit them because I'm not a part of it. But as I've said, I'm just looking to get a story. And so we came across, I think we met for a little while, and she just said, yeah, you really come off as genuine. And I said, yeah, I'm just here to get a story. I'm not here for an agenda. I'm not here to do anything besides tell someone else's story. And I can understand where she was coming from, too, because I've dealt with that on my own.
Well, what a great approach to it. It's a good point. But at the same time, now, I'm going to play devil's advocate here a little bit. Obviously, there's something about the stories that you pursue that attract you. And we know a little bit more about you, but I think we're trying to get it out of you. We're trying to be good journalists. Is there anything? And you mentioned, for example, like this idea of what the things that are on the outside, or things that your character should not be judged by certain things. Or is there anything you'd like to tell us about you that attracts you to these kinds of stories?
Well, I was waiting for the right moment, but I think this is appropriate. But I've
you dragged it out of you.
And by the way, the folks going into Wimbledon, I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding. Well, I feel all these parallels because years ago I was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, and if you don't know what that is, it's a disability. Its official definition is something, it affects a person's social skills, communication skills, things like that. But I just always felt a parallel because before I did the mixed race documentaries, I did a series of autism documentaries, and that was in response to getting sick of having to explain my story, which goes back to this parallel of feeling exploited, like they want to put you on exhibit.
Right.
And I thought I would answer all those questions by doing it, and that turned out to, in some ways, that it just created different kinds of questions, but I feel it accomplished what I had set out to do, was get past the basics. So what do you think, or things like that. It could actually get into something deeper as opposed to just the surface questions, and that's why I put those efforts into the multiracial documentary, because I'm thinking, well, let's get past the surface and let's begin to create a deeper discussion. So it's something that, had you talked to me 10 years ago, would have been more noticeable, but I kind of feel like I'm this bridge between two different worlds, because I understand the characteristics of someone with autism and the characteristics of those who don't have it, and it's just sort of where do I fit in this whole spectrum? Because I don't know if this is autism related, or if this is just how I grew up. But again, I'm just a very logically oriented person, so I'm not very emotional. I don't act on impulse, and then I have friends, or I've seen cases where people do, and I kind of wonder what would happen if they took themselves out even for a moment to sort out the situation, so they wouldn't make a decision they might regret.
Wow.
Yes.
I think that's why I'm still in one piece after getting through a college education.
Yeah, and congratulations, by the way, on that. But I love what you say, Mike, because I think oftentimes as someone who's biracial, I've often felt like that bridge too, that I have my foot in both worlds, but I'm still this one thing, but I'm both, right? So maybe that's the connecting factor for you. I'm just so glad that you're sharing these stories out there. Otherwise, we wouldn't have heard them.
Right. And I wouldn't have found you.
Right. One of our listeners, Silver Spring Steve, and you've answered him, I guess, privately, but he's hoping you can answer for everyone, is why no men in the documentary?
And trust me, he was not the first to ask me, but he gave me something which actually really would explain it. I don't exactly know if that's the answer, but a theory that would explain the situation is he sent me an email featuring a quote from Dr. Maria Roots in I think it was one of her books, but she talked about how women in general have been subjected more to their sexuality or their physical appearance more often than men, and so historically, and I definitely have the anecdotal and scholarly evidence to back up this statement, is that women feeling that they've been objectified or have been feeling inferior for years, they feel more apt to speak out about it, whereas men, historically, they've had this tough guy's mentality that they can't show emotions or that's a sign of weakness, and so even if they've been objectified or if they've felt uncomfortable, they feel their best option is to back off and not say anything. And the other thing is that some will adopt a monoracial identity, even if they're not monoracial themselves. And I have met some friends who don't have a problem with that at all, but it certainly explained why I had a hard time finding multiracial men, although I think I'm finally starting to nail some of them down. I just have to schedule an interview, but I have found multiracial men who are willing to talk about this. So it doesn't apply to everybody.
Please send them our way, too, because we actually have the same difficulty in trying to find, mixed identified men. That we know lots of men who are mixed, but they're not willing, or they don't have a language to talk about it yet. So we would love to be connected to those folks that you find, because their stories are interesting to us. We want to know what's going on.
Right, and the other part is just luck of the draw. Like when I did the first one, it was just all women who happened to talk about it, and there's a lot of other factors, but scientifically speaking, what we got made a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Well, and we'll have Dr. Root on soon in August. We're so excited to have her on. So you'll have to come back and we could explore it a little more on that show.
Steve says he'll send us some men. That sounds very fascinating.
Please. Yes.
Make them handsome too, just so we can look at them.
We'll take them. So I love this that you keep saying for the next part, and I'm getting more people for this next part. So how far are you going with this?
I've asked myself the same question with the autism programs, and other people have asked me, and I just say I don't know when I'm going to stop. But I mean, logically speaking, I wouldn't stop until I felt that every facet of the story's been told, and I knew with the first one that I missed out on a lot of points, especially with men. So I'm thinking, okay, I'm not done yet. And then I was emailing around with some other contacts, and that's how I got directed to this woman who does a lot of work with transracial adoption, and I think she had said a lot of her friends went to the Mixed Roots Festival a little while ago, so I'm not sure if there was any discussion about it. But before I met her, I didn't even realize that I didn't even come to my mind that transracial adoption is another part in this multiracial and multicultural experience.
Yeah. Yeah, and actually there's some controversy about whether or not that community should necessarily identify with the mixed movement, if there is such a thing, or should they be their own group. I mean, there's a lot of controversy going all about us right now.
Yes. We had a great woman, Lisa Marie Rollins, who we hope to have on this show soon, came both years for the festival, and she's transracially adopted. And her first workshop, the first year was, are we a part of this? Where do we fit in? Do we fit into this mixed experience, or is it something different? And that's what we're most excited about. And this is what I love about what you continue to do, Mike, is that we stay open to everything, whether or not we agree. We're there to tell the stories. We're there to encourage people to tell the stories. So we are not always in agreement with the stories we present, but we're thrilled that people are actually just talking. So that's what makes me happy to hear. Why it makes me happy to hear that you are going to continue getting these stories. It's really cool.
Yeah. So when can we expect the next part? Do you have a timeline?
I'm in the early stages, so I don't have a definite timeline yet. Although now that I'm aware of this festival, my goal is to get it done before the deadline for next year's event. So by the latest, it would be March. By the latest, it would be March. But since I'm like, if I got accepted the first time, may as well go at it again for lack of a better reason. But yeah, I did hear.
I like your reasoning. I think that's good reasoning.
I did hear it was well received, and then I heard there was one person who, I don't think she's here today, talked about what you're saying, that some people were in disagreement with what my subjects have said, and I've picked up some of that on YouTube, although most comments I get through the YouTube link are quite positive. But there are some who still are stuck to old ideas.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Or are not in a place where they can allow other people to have their own ideas. That's what makes me crazy. It's kind of, that's something certainly Heidi and I have learned through these podcasts. It's just we change our mind on each one, and it just in the same way we change the way we identify ourselves at the opening. It's it's fluid, it's organic. I think it's the last word we jumped on for it, and that's what's really cool too about you continuing the work is that even if you were to go back and talk to the people you've already had on, they may have a different viewpoint, and certainly the new people will have a different viewpoint, and that's what it's all about.
Right.
So now you just go ahead.
Oh,
I was agreeing. I was saying woohoo.
I'm actually trying to get one of them back because she went to the Dominican Republic, and I actually got, I don't want to say corrected, but because I talked to her before she left, but I found out from her that the racial acceptance is worse in some other countries than it is in the United States, and people have some folks like to harp on us for our racial history, but I watched some video, she studied in the Dominican Republic, and I watched a news story from Al Jazeera, or a couple of them, highlighting just how deep the divide is down there.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I'm still learning, even though I had the documentary's been out for a few months, I'm still learning new things about it.
Michael, will you make sure you say the full name of the documentary? People have asked on the chat, and I want to make sure it comes from you.
It's What Are You? ? A dialogue on mixed race. And before you ask, I borrowed the title from the introductory question of this show.
We can't take credit for that.
No, not at all.
We borrowed that from many places too.
and people can find it on YouTube in its entirety?
Yes, in its entirety. I did upload the documentary before I realized there was a festival, so I kind of preceded the festival, but in doing so, I've amassed nearly 5,000 hits in a.
Wow!
Congratulations!
That's excellent.
And it is on YouTube. You can go to it at youtube.com/sportsbrain09, which is my personal URL for YouTube.
And where else can they find you, Mike, if they want to get in touch with you?
Well, I'm all over the place. Literally, I have a WordPress site where I talk about more of my autistic experience as I take breaks between documentaries, and that is autisticjournalist.wordpress.com. And I'm also on Facebook and Twitter.
Who are you on Twitter?
Why am I on Twitter?
No, who are you on Twitter?
Oh, I'm the Sports Brain.
Oh,
yeah,
right.
We're following you.
We're following you.
The Sports Brain it unofficially became my internet moniker, so I just run with it with the exception of the WordPress site. But I'm on there. I haven't found a huge use for it yet. I've been blogging here and there, but it's just another place to find me. And then, as I mentioned, Facebook and of course, I'm always uploading new things to YouTube, which is kind of a smorgasbord of everything I've talked about. And as my name would suggest, I do upload sporting events as well, but I do videos on autism, and I'll be doing more for mixed race as those continue to come in, and just kind of whatever.
And you gotta check out our congratulations videos. Our thank you videos. We just love. How did you do that confetti? That was the coolest thing ever.
I have a program called Adobe After Effects. It's a computer-generated program, and I picked up on that through my work at I work at a cable television station in St. Paul, as I mentioned. So I later installed all this video editing equipment and software, and so that's why I'm able to add and create all these effects and things that others who don't have access wouldn't be able to do. So you can tell the difference between my videos and what someone would make on iMovie or Windows Movie Maker, and not to discredit them because you work with what you got, but it's just a more professional I work with more professional programs.
Yeah. Well, we think you've put together a really professional package in the documentary, and we were so proud to be able to present it. And thank you so much for joining us live today. It was great to talk to you.
Yes, you're welcome.
Terrific. Yeah, thank you so much. And I also want to say, I mean, you know, it's part of one of the benefits of the festival is to know that you are meeting people who will be moving and shaking. And again, because of your professionalism with the videos and your consistency and all the things you talked about here, the ways that you approach journalism, there's just no question in our mind that you will not be going on to really big things. And so we're glad to say we know you.
Yeah.
It's funny you say this because yesterday I covered my first professional basketball game. I was covering the Lynx Monarchs game last night for an online site. So I'm starting to move up the ranks, but it was a pretty cool experience.
Congratulations.
Well, good for you.
Thanks.
Good for you. That's right. All right. Well, thanks again, and we know we'll see you back on here soon, but we're so glad to have had you today. And definitely come on. Make sure you call in for the Maria Root episode. I believe that's August 7th. All right, everybody. There's another episode of Mixed Chicks Chat. It's always so cool to have our friends on and people that we've gotten to know a little bit. These chats. It was really cool, wasn't it, Heidi?
It was really cool. I'm so proud of him. Am I allowed to be proud of him? I'm very happy.
Excellent. Yes, very proud. All right. Well, I'm Fanshen Cox, and I am half white American and half Jamaican.
And I'm Heidi Durrow, and I am African American and white, Danish. And we are
the Mixed Chicks. And that's our show for today. Thanks so much for coming on. And we'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye, guys.
Bye. 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 Bye.